What's going on, DRF Players Podcast? It is Tuesday, October 20th. We are on the eve of the Breeders' Cup, sort of, if you want to say that. We're in the week prior, week leading up. For the first time in forever, Mike Hogan, you've been here, basically. Have you missed any shows?
Yeah, couple.
All right.
Yeah. I'm not Cal Ripken or anything.
Well, pretty darn close. Pretty darn close.
Well, closest we got.
Fornatown. Say again?
I said he's the closest we got to Cal Ripken, for whatever
That's right. Peter Thomas Fornatel. I feel like I haven't seen you in 100 years. I haven't seen you since we were upstate at Saratoga.
I know. I miss you, buddy. It's been. It makes me realize how much fun we all have doing these pods. Not that it's been unfun without you, but hopefully we'll get to a point.
It's okay. Reap the praise, man. I'm a sucker. You know, I have no problem with you saying how much you enjoy my company. Really, it's not a problem.
I believe this is the first time all three of us have been on the pod since before Saratoga.
That's amazing. I thought there was maybe one early on. But maybe not. I mean, you might be right.
I don't think so. I think it might have been around the Belmont. Like,
that sounds about right.
Like right after, like post Triple Crown Glow.
That sounds about right. Yeah.
Then everybody went off their separate ways, and I think this is the first time we're all back.
You were the only constant.
Again, I'm not Cal Ripken, and you can't be half Cal Ripken because it's all or nothing. If you miss one, it's over.
You're Billy Ripken.
You're Billy Ripken.
Just be careful Be careful what bat you bring to the baseball card shoot.
That's true.
A super obscure joke for anybody out there.
I like it.
You can Google Billy Ripken bat and see what I'm talking about.
Pete, you're still over there in the UK. You've got some prices for us. I think we just talked about Breeders' Cup stuff at this point. No need to really hash what happened last weekend. I mean, it is what it is.
Well, the big news is broke this morning.
Well, that's what I'm saying. So Breeders' Cup specific stuff. So let's forget about last weekend's races. You can obviously go on Public Handicap or find out if you did well or did bad. Doesn't matter. Let's go on to this stuff. So do we just start right away with the Classic, or do we?
Yeah.
So the news, obviously, at this point is Beholder spiked a bit of a fever. Now, when I say spiked the fever, I mean we're talking about 1 degree off. Yeah. It's not like it's, you know, life and death or anything crazy like that. But at the end of the day, it's not what you want to have going into the biggest race of your life. For all the people that were saying, you know, she can't ship, I guess this is a credit to you. I don't want to say that she can't ship, because apparently this is kind of a common thing. It happens from time to time. But nonetheless, Pete, I want to start with you. I mean, if she, fingers crossed, knock on wood, she continues on, she's okay, and she runs in the Classic. Does this deter you at all?
It does. I got to admit, it does. I mean, for me, obviously, no question in terms of talent, how terrific she is. The question for me has always been, wasn't someone who said she can't ship, but I was someone who said if you examine her PPs, some of the only issues you can find, either temperamentally or in terms of performance, were correlated to shipping. And so that was always a question for me. So I don't like to hear something like this on the eve of a challenge. You know, yes, proven grade 1 animal, not proven grade 1 animal against this Classic competition. You know, that Pack Classic field, as amazing as her performance was, I don't think there's anybody out there who's going to tell you that was anywhere near as difficult to test as this. I want to see a horse coming into this, training, firing on all cylinders. This gives me pause in a big way.
Mike, what do you think?
Yeah, well, I mean, let's compare it to last year. Last year she had a fever of 104. This year it was 101.3. So, at worst, you know, it's similar to last year, and you know they stop her or whatever. I think at best she misses a day of work. It's just a little glitch. Is you know, something that they move forward on, and she continues. But the concern for me is less about the fever, and it's more about missing training the week before, like Pete said, the biggest test of her life.
Yeah, but I mean, I'm just looking at that. At the end of the day, she missed time.
Yeah.
It's not so much
exactly.
I mean, look, if she had an ouchy foot or a fever, at the end of the day, she missed time.
Right, exactly.
That's the most important thing.
Exactly.
Does it totally, for you, I mean, if she goes, is she a pitch?
Boy, I don't know if she's a complete pitch, but I was never completely bullish on her to begin with. This makes me a little bit more hesitant. And it makes me wonder if, because the word coming from the camp was, it's the Classic if all things go as planned. So it makes me wonder, do they say, okay, well, she missed a little time, let's fall back to the distaff? Or is it, if she's not 100%, it's Classic or nothing?
Pete?
I mean, I think that's a very interesting question. I personally think it's probably Classic or nothing. I think that's the race they've been going for. I think if she's not 100%, given her history of shipping issues, just temperamentally, when I say shipping issues, I'm not saying she's always run horribly when she shipped. I'm just saying she's had issues when she shipped every time. And so I just trust Mandela so much. I would think she's either right and she goes in the Classic, or she's not, and I don't know. Is she definitely retiring after this, or is there the possibility of next year? I remember her. What do we know about that?
Yeah, the guys that Spendthrift, Jesus' name is slipping my mind. D. Wayne Hughes, thank you. He had said, and now again, this was at the end of Del Mar, and it was coming off of that monster effort, that, there's no reason to think that if she's not, feeling well and training well, that we just don't go on with her again. As a 6-year, she's 5 now? Five,
she's
yeah,
5.
as a 6-year-old. So, I mean, again, who knows? So many things can change. Keep in mind, she was supposed to be sold last year, too.
Right. And there's talk about her being sold this year, too.
So, I guess the way I'm looking at it is, and this really bothers me, because I really almost convinced myself that I was going to pick her, but I don't think I can do it now. And more, first and foremost, if she goes in the Classic, I still think she has a chance, but I think she needs to go for a couple reasons we'll get into in a minute. If she goes to the distaff, for me, it's a major red flag, and I've got to look at it and have to try to beat her. Because like you say, Pete, I trust Mandela. Mandela has sounded very bullish leading up to this, that she doesn't need to get any better. She's ready. She'll win, or she'll be very competitive as is. If she were to go in the distaff, I would look at it and say, something's not right, and I'm going to take a try and beat a 1-9 shot who maybe isn't 100%. Now, I think the more important thing now, too, is if for some reason she doesn't go, who runs with American Pharaoh, who apparently Jay Privman tweeted earlier is coming off of an absolutely monstrous workout this morning. I think the final, it was 110 flat for 6 furlongs. He started 5 back of his workmate and drew 8 clear.
I think the only horse that could possibly have enough speed to go with him early is Smooth Roller. Maybe.
Well, I mean, Frosted went.
Why would he do that though? Why would
I guess that's the thing. That's the bigger thing.
I'm not saying he will. I'm just saying could potentially. Frosted did last time against the wishes of the trainer, and I'm sure there's no way Frosted goes with him again. It's not going to be Honor Code. It's not going to be Tonalist. It's not going to be Keen Ice. It's not going to be FNX. It's not going to be Hard Aces. It's not going to be Glen Eagles. Smooth Roller is the only one that possibly could. I'm not saying he will, because to do so may jeopardize his own chances, like what happened with Frosted in the Travers.
Keep in mind, Frosted was only beaten a length and a half, 2 lengths.
Right.
I mean, it's not like he fired a shot and he almost got there.
Yeah, absolutely.
I guess, Pete, if, let's say, she's gone, I mean, do you look at this as he's going to need to stumble to lose?
No, I still think it's enough of a test that I wouldn't price him up at odds on or anything. I mean, I wouldn't even price him up at even money. But I do think he goes on my value line. He had to make a value line without the final field. But he goes south to 2-1 for sure if he's the only speed in the race. In the market, he'll probably be less than that. But just in terms of like what my value would be, you gotta cut your price on Pharaoh with no Beholder in the race. Absolutely.
I mean, the plan for me coming into this until this morning, and things will change again. The pre-entries will be out tomorrow for the public to take a look at. I was thinking I had him and Beholder. I had him at 4-1. I had her at 9-2. It's going to change drastically whether she runs or not. She's going to float up, he'll come down, but at no point is he going to be enough of a price for me to play him. The question then becomes, if I'm playing pick 4 or pick 6, do you single him on? Is he your only A? You use a couple of backups. It kills me so much because I think a horse like Tonalist is coming into this in razor sharp form, and he's just not going to get the setup that he's going to need. I don't think.
I think you're right, and it's a bummer too because I'm not one of these people who thinks Tonalist is just a Belmont horse for course. I would love him at the right place in this race, and I'll probably still try him even without apparent pace. But you could obviously feel a lot more confident going to the window with your money on Tonalist if. At one point we were thinking it was going to be maybe American Pharaoh, maybe Liam's Map, maybe Beholder. Then all of a sudden the Tonalists and the Honor Codes become A-pluses for me in the race. And as it's shaping up pace-wise, it's kind of hard to make them any more than a B, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. What do you think?
I think so. I mean, Honor Code, again, if Beholder's gone, Honor Code's price comes down, and Honor Code is that much more vulnerable from the pace dynamics. So he becomes much less interesting if Beholder's out, for two reasons.
Right. Oh, no, I agree completely.
Yeah, I mean, so then it is maybe I don't know. I just don't really know who I would lean as heavily on. It maybe makes it a much less interesting race for me. It maybe makes me just sit back and watch more as a fan than to try and get too involved.
I mean, I hate to say it. I'm starting to think that same way, which could put me in a bit of a bind playing in the BC. Like, if I get into that classic and there's a chance, wow,
right.
What the heck am I going to do? Because if
Now,
I think he is... Go ahead.
I was just going to say, is that breaking news that I've missed from you? Is this a known thing that you're definitely... I was going to ask if you're going to be going back to play in the BC for certain.
I suppose if you want to call it breaking news, I don't think... I wouldn't classify this as breaking news.
Hey, in my world it is.
Because it's not super
tournament guy,
important.
this is breaking news.
But yeah, I'll be playing next week. So for me, it puts me in a bit of a bind now because I look at it and I go, if the best horse has the tactical advantage, boy, it's... Now, again, I shouldn't even say that because I'm not completely convinced in this year's field. We had that whole talk, like you say, maybe last time we were together after the Triple Crown, and I said he's a great horse. And then I've wavered a little bit back and forth. But look, he is. He's a great horse. He has a great accomplishment.
Right.
But at the end of the day, on paper, he's not fast enough right now. If you look at it from the rest of the field, I mean, there are multiple other horses in there that have run faster than he is from a buyer standpoint in their career. That doesn't mean that...
Too.
Say again?
Other figures, too. That's not an anomaly of the buyer scale. He's not the fastest horse in the race on paper. I agree with you.
And I guess that's where you come down to ultimately, Mike Watchmaker's brought it up, how is the figure earned? There's a very serious scenario where if he is all by his lonesome out there, he'll run the race of his life and he'll earn a 115 buyer and it'll be all, roses and fireworks because he'll win the Grand Slam and he'll win by 7 lengths and everyone will say he's the greatest thing since sliced bread. There's a part of me, though, that I'm already a little bit disappointed now going into this. Like, yeah, we're going to have a lot of really good horses, but I don't know that we're going to necessarily, I don't want to say a fairly run race, but we're not going to get the honest race that we thought we were going to get.
Right. Yeah.
Agree, disagree?
You go first, Mike.
I'll just say I wouldn't disagree. I mean, a few weeks ago when we were looking at a race with Liam's Map and Beholder for sure, I mean, and let's not get ahead of ourselves.
She may still run.
She may very well still run.
Right.
Because, and let's go back to why she shipped so early, because Mandela knew that this was a possibility because she's had some issues in the past, so he wanted to make sure she was there a good, week and a half prior to the race so that if she did have a little, setback from the travel, it didn't happen 2 days before the race. So,
well, but he also wanted to work over the track, too.
For sure. I mean, it's not that she missed her work today. It's that
she just missed a little
day of
light
gala.
training. Yeah, I mean, it's not like this was. And then that's the other thing too. It's not. This is not earth-shattering that she missed a day. But at the end of the day, you don't want to have a hiccup. Yeah, you don't want to have a hiccup on the way.
It's a hiccup.
It's
a hiccup.
It's not what you map out.
No. And at this point, the last thing you want to have is any sort of an issue going forward. I mean, again, like Pete, you said it. I mean, this is going to easily be as big. This will be Pharaoh's biggest test, and this easily would have been her biggest test, no question.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and when I talk about Pharaoh, and when I talk about his speed figures, I do want to just throw in the caveat that I do believe there are reasons, as we've discussed before on Old Pods, why maybe some of his speed figures aren't as high as I believe they maybe should be. Not that anybody made a mistake in making the figures per se. Obviously it's more of an art than a science at points, and just had several scenarios where figure making was either difficult or the efforts were probably better than the raw figures suggest. So to me, I will just to add on to that thing that you said, Matt. If he wins this, regardless of what happens with Beholder in the pace scenario, just the fact if he goes and competes against the likes of Tonalist and Honor Code with a pace advantage, without a pace advantage, if he comes from that race in Travers and comes back against those horses, even with a little tactical edge, and wins, I think he's an all-time great. I really do. I think that would be enough for me.
Nope.
I won't disagree with that. I mean, you know, look, because the other thing is we don't know what could have been. You know, I mean, Liam's map, if he had gone, may have set the early pace, certainly, but he had question marks at 10 furlongs, and you could foresee a scenario where American Pharaoh doesn't really run all that differently than he does without Liam's map in the race. He sits and stalks and passes, presumably when Liam's map hits the wall at about 9 furlongs or 8.5 furlongs or whatever. I mean, we don't know that that's not the case, and you can only really grade a horse based on what he's being asked to do in those situations. I mean, it's no knock to American Pharaoh that Beholder maybe spikes a fever the week before, doesn't run. Liam's Map's connections choose to dodge him, say, and run in a different race. You can't really hold that against a horse.
No. But I'll disagree where you say that he would have run the same race, because I don't think he would have. He would have been forced to do something different.
What I'm saying is we don't know he wouldn't have. You know, we can't say one way or another.
I don't think he could have gone 48 to the half while Liam's Map was out there and going 46 and 4.
But we'll never know.
No, we won't. We won't. But again, I'm just projecting.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
The only point I'll make to I guess it's a little bit on Mike's side of the argument is just how well he was able to shut off in the Haskell. The Haskell, which in so many ways was his most impressive race, because there was a speed horse in there, and he didn't chase, and he didn't get too up in the bridle, and he didn't cost himself. He was able to relax and run his race with that speed horse inside, with the other speed horse outside, and he did just kind of run like there was nobody else in the race. I mean, he does have that club in his bag.
I agree with that, but I mean, let's also, I mean, competitive edge is not Liam's Map. Liam's Map, you can make the case is the fastest horse in the country. You know, so that's the only, again, it doesn't really matter because he's not going to run.
Right.
I was just looking at it saying, he could sit. He was going to sit either way, I think. But there's a difference between sitting off of 46 and 4 and sitting off of 47 and 4. That's the only difference.
That's fair. But, you know, I mean, again, off of that effort in the Travers, those are the kinds of races that I love to, I mean, I talked on the podcast about how I was not necessarily looking forward to betting, because who knows what's going to happen with Beholder, but all things being equal, Yahilwa's race last out in the Spinster is the type of effort I like to look as a bet back. Duels early, puts away the early pace rival, hangs on gamely, fights down the line. Those are the efforts you move forward from. That was American Pharaoh's Travers even more so, you know, and those are I don't see why he couldn't move forward off of that Travers if he's working well, if he seems to be doing well, if he's a 3-year-old, as he is late in his 3-year-old year. That's where you sometimes have horses put together the best performance of his career, and even from a figure standpoint, he probably will need to, but I don't see why he wouldn't.
That's fair.
I think that's fair. You got a 3-year-old with 8 weeks behind him. I mean, if you're just doing injections of what speed figure you'd expect a 3-year-old to run, you're going to add whatever their best was in August, you're going to add for what you think the best they're going to run in late October is. That's just has to do with the maturation of the thoroughbred. So I think that's a good point. I mean, the problem for me with the Yahilwa case, like when you run that big effort and then you're coming back in a couple of weeks, I don't like that. It still can be a positive sign, but in a big grade 1 like this, I prefer the idea of American Pharaoh or any horse having a little bit more time to sort of consolidate the gains from the effort and then really move forward. And there's a real chance that's what we're going to see from Pharaoh, a horse I was originally, theoretically anyway, looking to bet against, who I'm sort of coming around to as a clear A, if not A plus in the race.
Well, Pete, I will just add, that's why American Pharaoh is likely to be about 6-5, and Yahilwa was probably going to be about 25-1. So
yeah, absolutely. No, I'm not saying don't bet Yahilwa. I'm just saying that you can make a lot more of a positive case along those lines with the Pharaoh.
Of course. Hence the odds.
Oh, but I mean, not hence the odds. I mean, Pharaoh's just better.
Well,
I mean, Yahilwa would need to. The rest of those mares would need to regress, and she would need to run the race for her life.
Yeah, but I don't see any reason why.
But my point is, like, I'm not gonna. I mean, the point is that quality is still gonna win out.
True.
Yahilwa's gonna need all the stars to align in Lexington to have any chance.
Yeah. but it's happened.
Pharaoh's not going to need all the stars to align with the way this field is going.
Well,
Really
the stars
not.
are already starting to align.
Right, and I don't even think he necessarily needed to have all this stuff going to happen with him. But at any rate, so the Classic obviously is a little bit in flux. The pre-entries, again, everybody will be able to take a look at them tomorrow night. The race prior to that is the Turf. Now,
Yes.
I'm most interested in hearing what Pete has to say. Got into a discussion on Twitter with people. And I don't, again, Twitter is dangerous where certain things can sound as if they're snarky or they're, you know, meant, however you want to say it, when they're not. I didn't want anyone, when I was going forward saying, I thought at this point now, with Flincher leaving that race and going to Japan, and if Golden Horn does come, which it sounds like he's going to, I thought they should say, you know what, screw it, we're going to run in the Classic. Now, everyone was bringing up the point that at the end of the day, he's a turf horse, and the Classic is not as big in the world stage as we think it is here in the States, and this, that, and the other thing. My only argument was
the breeding business.
Well, but my only argument was if he were to win the Classic here, not only would he win on dirt, where the only other sort of foreign horse that has won the Classic won on synthetic, but you would have beaten our
What about
Triple Crown.
You're
forgetting.
Well,
Andre
our
Fabre.
Kong, you're right. I'm sorry, at 1,000,000 to 1. And, you know, Bertrando, who probably didn't want a mile and a quarter. But point being, you would have beaten our Triple Crown winner in our biggest race, and you would have stamped yourself. Obviously, you're already, you know, one of the, what they're hailing is one of the greats over there where you are, Pete. And you would have to acknowledge him over here as one of, you know, one of the very few that you could talk about as one of those all-timers. Am I just way off base? I understand. Again, I don't want it to sound like I don't understand what people are saying, that the turf is more important over there. But I just look at it and say, well, I mean, if you lose here, I think that's a major, major black mark against him. You're not supposed to lose the Big Blue Kitten. You had
me until the end there, Matt. I agree with you that in theory, for the horse's value, I mean, I think there's no question in terms of dollars and cents, the Classic is worth a lot more. But I do think that the folks you were talking to were making a point maybe about like what the race means culturally. But in terms of economics, I think you're right. Now, I haven't heard word one about them even thinking about this. Was this just speculation on your part, or had you heard?
This was nothing more than me looking at it saying this is a race that already probably lacks pace. And again, turf to dirt is apples to oranges, but this is a horse who's handy. He can be forwardly placed. You know, it's not like he's one of these sort of one-run closers. And the turf itself, I mean, I really thought, and again, some people brought it up. They go, Flincher should be inconsequential in this, and I understand. He's already handled him. I just looked at it going into this saying Flincher is really the only proper competition in this race.
Yeah, no, I love
he's
Flincher.
Gone. Yeah, once he's gone, I mean, Golden Horn, I think, could be 3 to 5 in this race.
He probably will be, and on form he should be. The issue for me on dirt is I just don't see the dirt breeding there like at all, and that could, you know, at the end of the day be why they're talking in those lines. But the other thing is, I think people here are extremely forgiving of horses who ship and lose. I mean, back in the day there were all these storied ARC winners who shipped to the Breeders' Cup Turf and didn't win, and it didn't hurt their the view of them going forward. It actually hurt the Breeders' Cup Turf as a race, and it took many years before another ARC winner even considered running in this race. And in truth, I guess one ARC winner hasn't run in many, many years until Golden Horn. So I think that, and you know, with the way that shipping methods and everything have improved, I don't think there's any sort of negative of being an ARC winner in this race. For me, the problem with Golden Horn is I'm very conflicted, because I went to the ARC. Susan and I took the Eurostar down to Paris and went and saw the ARC a couple of weeks ago. And my attitude going into that race was, man, Golden Horn's had such a hard season. Maybe he's a little over the top. And then not only does he go and do that, but we're standing maybe 50 yards from the finish and had a great view of him coming back down around from after the race, and kind of didn't look like he'd even run. Like, he looked great coming back. He did not have that sort of saggy back, exhausted look that horses often get after, you know, mile and a half Group 1 races or Grade 1 races. He really looked strong. So on my own visual evidence, I feel like I got to contradict my original hypothesis, because if you think a horse is over the top at the Arc, you're certainly then not going to bet him back in a couple of weeks in the Breeders' Cup Turf. But so I think it's the kind of thing where I'll kind of put one foot on the boat and one foot on the dock, and use him as an anchoring A, but also be on the lookout for some other competition and horses who might be able to beat him. And Matt, as a trip guy, I'm very curious what you say about this if you happen to see the race. But I'm a minority opinion on this, but I thought in the Irish Champion that Free Eagle was going to go by and beat Golden Horn had he not been hampered. Did you get a chance to watch that tape?
I agree completely, and I love that everyone thought that Found ran some monster race. I thought it was a 2-horse race throughout. I mean, look, she ran just fine, but I mean, Free Eagle, I thought Free Eagle was going by him, like you say. Now, does that mean that he's better? Look, I bet Free Eagle in the Arc, and I thought he ran fine. He got hampered a little bit by Trev.
Oh, Trev mugged him. He got mugged again. I
don't know if he got mugged. He was hampered a little bit.
It was bad. No, he had to totally lose his action, I thought.
I just don't think he was ever going to be able to run that horse down. I guess that goes back.
He wasn't going to win. He wasn't going to win, but it probably cost him a minor placing.
But it goes back to the whole tactical advantage, and that's the only thing. And maybe I am in the major minority here. I think him losing over here does so much worse. I'm trying to think. I can't even speak. This is bad English. Him losing over here, like the way I bring up a friend of ours over there in the UK who said that they think that this is the best horse they've sent over since Dancing Brave. Now, obviously, Dancing Brave lost, but he got slapped in the eye with a piece of sod, and he probably wasn't feeling all that well. I just don't think you can come over here. If you lose to Slumber, you're telling me that's not a black mark against what? No, honestly,
people here won't care. People here will not care. They will not care.
Really?
It's foreign. Yeah, they won't care. It's foreign.
All right.
It's foreign racing. They're just going to say, "Oh, it was a long campaign." They built-in excuse. End of a long, hard campaign. He didn't handle the ship. He's one of our. He's our best horse since Sea the Stars. That's what they'll say.
I would just assume rather than not go then.
I shouldn't have said that. I forgot about the existence of Frankel.
But as far as legitimate sort of distance horses, Frankel, I know he went 10, but I don't know. Again, maybe I'm just in the way minority here, and it probably has more to do with me being so sour on our horses than
you just want another alternative in the Classic.
No, not at all. I think he would fit in the Classic.
Oh, sure.
I just don't know. If it's money, I get it. If you think it's an easy paycheck for that you're running for a $3 million purse, that's fine. But why not run for $5 million? And if you do win, all of a sudden you are just the absolute king of kings.
This is astounding, guys. I was just poking around while we're chatting on various bookie sites over here. Golden Horn with a run. In other words, no run or no bet. 1-3 for the race.
I said to these guys, I said if Flintshire runs, but if before Flintshire left, I thought he'd probably be even money, and now I think he's probably 3-5.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
1-3 is,
basically 2-5.
Yeah, I mean,
it's astonishing.
Less than 2-5.
Now the bigger problem there also becomes, as far as the race is concerned, look at that race on paper and tell me who's going to keep him honest. Because this could be the one time I really think that a European horse is on the lead.
Didn't Chad also enter Shining Copper? I don't know if he'll run.
I don't know.
I think that was the story yesterday, is that Chad had...
Even better. I mean, it's the same deal that they talked about in the Arc, where essentially they used Trev's rabbit as the target.
Oh, boy. By the way, you want to talk about bad rides. How about the guy on Trev's rabbit?
Yeah. Yeah, right, exactly, right.
I don't know if you looked at the sectionals in that race, but somebody was asleep at the switch there.
It's supposed to open up.
Yeah.
I mean, he just let the winner couldn't have had a better trip. But, he's a real... That said, I'm not disrespecting Golden Horn. He's extremely good.
I guess, and this is where we go into now. I mean, these are the final 2 races on Breeders' Cup Saturday. As far as the Breeders' Cup is concerned, there is another race after the Classic at Keeneland. But
build your bankroll early? Is that
I don't know. I mean, because you're looking at it, you could very easily have 2 horses that are $8 even money, sub even money. Yeah, I mean, what is that? What would that double pay right now? $10?
I mean, if you believe the English prices,
Yeah.
$8 would be a gift.
Yeah,
$8, yeah, that's even money to even money, right, on the parlay.
So at this point, now we're looking and saying, okay, maybe those final 2 races of the Breeders' Cup are going to be a little bit from the chalky standpoint. Now we've got to look at the other alternatives. Now we look at a race like the Sprint, where, unfortunately, multiple circumstances, multiple things have happened. It looks like you're going to have 2 horses that are heavy favorites, and do you think you can beat Private Zone and or Run Happy? And if you can, where do you go? Do you go to another race like the Filly and Mare Sprint, where Cavorting is going to be the favorite? Do you think that she's getting, maybe it's been a little while and that priorist form hasn't come back very good? I guess what I'm trying to find out is, where are you looking at this point, Pete?
Well, you mentioned the Sprint, and I agree with you on paper. It absolutely looks like a match race between Private Zone and Run Happy. But given their respective running styles, is that maybe the place to look for a $40 winner?
You would think. I mean, look, there could be a chance that those 2 end up dueling each other into the ground. The problem is, who from coming off the pace do you actually believe in?
Here's a crazy thought. Here's a crazy thought. I mean, he's probably 1 to 20 to not have this happen. But what if Kobe's back actually breaks and doesn't sit in the gate?
Well,
and it gets a pace, the fastest pace he's ever seen in his life, because he's flying in every possible race.
There's also a major chasm as far as the ability of those Southern California horses compared to the East Coast sprinters.
It's true, but that's why, when you talk about crazy prices, you have to take a leap somewhere, because otherwise they're not going to be crazy prices. Look, Kobe's back is probably 1 to 20 to break slowly in any race he goes.
Sure.
What if in the
this
one
might
race?
Be the race to break slowly, though. It's
maybe.
Like, that's the other thing, is it becomes, if you're going to be in a race where the pace is going to completely melt down, there's worse things in the world than getting left. So for a horse like that, it's not necessarily as big a deal. My inclination, I don't know, you just asked the question off the top of my head, the 2 names that popped in my head, Salutos Amigos, and maybe last year's winner, your boy, Work All Week, if he gets his act together.
No, he's retired.
He's retired.
Oh, he's not coming. Okay.
No,
I'm staring at his name here in the betting and wondering what's going on.
He's out.
Okay.
They hung him up last week. Yeah, he's off to the farm.
Well, what about
Salutos? It's not. It certainly wouldn't be my first choice. In terms of if it was just pick the winner scenario. But is there a chance he could just be some ridiculous number?
I think I think Kobe's back could be shorter than Saludos Amigos.
Do you?
Yeah, Kobe's back for some reason has just a fall. And look, I'm one of those fools that just continue to bet him every time, knowing that it's the definition of insanity.
He's going to break slow, and he's not going to win.
Yeah,
when was the last time he won?
The same Keeneland.
Oh, okay.
Keeneland.
That's right.
He's won over the track in the spring. The problem is, again, that was going 7, I believe. Yeah. He's going to be going 6 here. He's never run a triple digit in his life, I don't believe. Even with this last race.
No, I'm looking at the PP. Yeah, I'm looking at the PP here. That was a 97.
97?
Oh, yeah, he had a 99. He had a 99 at Keeneland, though, in the Commonwealth, the race we were talking about before. And then he also had it in the Crosby. So, But speed figures can become a little bit less relevant in a situation with a 1 in 100 type pace scenario where you just have, a complete meltdown. So I don't think that's nuts at all if you want to try to get clever.
What about this year's version of Work All Week?
Who?
Ivana Folanovalad or whatever his name is.
Yeah,
I mean he's the same style, I guess you could say, and beating up on lesser competition, and now has the race, or at least faces the field of his life, gets overlooked because people see him as being up against it from a class standpoint. But ultimately, you've got a horse that all he wants to do is win, and I don't know. Those, if you're gonna get crazy, those would be the 2 I would be most likely to try and get crazy with, rather than like a Big Mock or a Salutos Amigos or even a Wild Dude. I would need much more of a price to try and convince me to go against Private Zone or Run Happy.
Let's go, Pete. You're over there. Obviously these runners coming over for the mile. I think if Esoteric comes, and if you want to pronounce it the way they have over there, Esoteric, I think she's
Esoterique,
really
c'est magnifique.
Esoterique.
I think she's really good.
For Andre Fabre.
Awesome.
Andre Faber.
Andre Faber. trained your buddy Arkangas.
Trained our Kong, yeah. What do you think? I mean, is this another spot where it's, take a look and see which Euros come over and then size them up?
I think that's probably a pretty safe way to go. I mean, you've got. I think you nailed the one that I would call my sort of top pick from here in Esoterique. The other one who I really like a lot at this stage is Time Test. I don't know if you've watched any of the tape on Time Test, but I was there in the paddock for that last race at Newmarket, and I went there. It was a short field, and he was a short price, and I went there with the intention of beating him. And it was one of those races where he walked by, and I was like, no, this is the winner right here. It just looked amazing. Really, couldn't have looked much better, and ran a good race, and gets a little bit of an upgrade when you look at the internal fractions. He ran there as well. So he's one who's a little bit comparatively to Esoterique under the radar, who I've got a lot of interest in. And that's sort of where obviously let's see who shows up. Maybe there'll be an American that is somebody I want to use in there in some iteration, but I don't know. I don't think Tepin's good enough to face these beasts, and I'm not sure where else to go. You guys have any clever ideas in there?
For what I'll say about Time Test, he actually tried Golden Horn. I believe it was in the Juddmonte International, and I think it was more a distance thing than necessarily a class thing. I don't know that he wanted to go a mile and a quarter. So if you want to give him the benefit of the doubt. Do you think anyone over here has a chance? I have two.
Yeah, you do?
Ooh, nice.
Well, I know, was it you that was saying you really liked Obviously's run in the Woodbine Mile?
Yeah.
Yeah. And I guess you could make a case that he is potentially loose. I mean, I don't know who Tepin is going to be tracking.
That's the other one.
That's the other one. Really interesting. I didn't mind Mondialist's run in the Woodbine Mile.
I will say, if he wins, I lose.
Okay. Of the ones that have run in North America, for me, it would probably be. Yeah, it's really hard to make too strong of a case for any of these. And are we for sure that the Pizza Man is running in the turf and not in the mile?
I will have to find out. We'll see when the pre-entries come.
I heard turf.
Turf, I assume he's going to be going long.
Yeah.
He'd be probably my top American if I had to pick one. I love that prep race.
Yeah.
I mean, that was very impressive.
Me too.
Thought he ran huge. I finally am buying into the Pizza Man.
Yeah,
I know, and I've never liked him either, but now all of a sudden I like him.
Yeah.
He's proven that he's not just a horse for course for Arlington.
For me, it was more about the quality. Was he actually as good as... I never thought he was good. Yeah. And he's run really good races this year. Finally, you can't just keep saying no, and continue to lose. That's what I've been doing. Finally, and then especially Pete, like you said, that Maker's mark, that was, or the Shadwell Turf Mile, that's what it was. I thought that was a really big effort.
He looked like he was dropped out of a plane at the 8th pole, and then how about that gallop out? I mean, they must have been, it's never fun to lose a grade 1 by that little, but the connections must have been thrilled thinking about the Breeders' Cup Turf after that.
Absolutely.
Yeah, he was the only one running late. And, maybe, correct me if maybe you guys are thinking the same way. I think part of my prejudice against the Pizza Man is the name. Let's face it, you don't name a horse the Pizza Man if you think you've got a grade 1 animal.
That's
right?
You're going to make me asphyxiate laughter here. It wouldn't have been my first choice for a name. But then everybody on Twitter wouldn't get to make their Pizza Man delivers funds. So where would
I don't even know how this came up the other night at home. But my girlfriend was at work, and she goes, we were talking about horse names, and someone brought up the name of a horse named Hoof-Hearted.
Oh, yeah.
Hoof-Hearted.
Classic.
Great Hoof-Hearted.
Quarter horse.
And they thought that was just the funniest thing and I said,
the YouTube will make me cackle with delight. The YouTube video of Hoof-Hearted's races brings out the inner 14-year-old boy in me.
Well, that's what it is right there.
Well,
it's a juvenile child.
And the best thing about the Hoof-Hearted races was after the call, he says, "Hoof-Hearted in the winner circle."
That's right. That's right.
Potty humor on the DRF Players podcast.
But yeah, I mean,
I understand what you're saying.
You know, it's like a while. I can't remember where it was, but a while back, I remember you spotted a horse named Mozzarella. And you're like,
you can't.
Why do you name a horse Mozzarella? You're not.
You can't win.
There's not your
a
Oaks
Derby
winner.
That's
There's
not
your
Oaks,
Derby. Yeah.
Mozzarella is never going to be the one. Just not. I'm sorry. And there's nothing wrong with mozzarella, but it's just anyway. Yeah.
It's like conversely, when you've got a horse named Coolmore, you go, oh whoa. This one, they wouldn't name this one.
They're out of names though. Like they're naming horses now Coolmore and Ballydoyle. It's like what happened to? There's no other like random American politicians or state figures they can name horses after.
But it's like you figure you got to save. You're not going to use that one on one that ends up being a claimer. It's like okay, wait, they're using Coolmore here. This one must be pretty good.
Coolmore is pretty good. I wonder if that's a name we'll see in the entries. I'm hearing sort of that probably not. I'm seeing some vibes in the market that probably not. But that would be an interesting one if Coolmore turns up.
Other races we can quickly discuss. You know, that's obviously a juvenile Coolmore. I guess of the 4 juvenile races, I think I've been on her bandwagon from day one. I think she's the best male, female, whatever. I think Songbird for me right now is just I don't want to say a slam dunk. But because there's no such thing as a slam dunk, but I think for me, she's my most likely winner of the weekend.
Let me ask you this, Matt. Right now, if I were to walk down the block to the betting shop right here on my corner, I did not pick this flat because of the betting shop on the corner. It just worked out that way.
Happy accident.
But I could put down my money and get 2-1 on Songbird. What do you think?
And that's non-run or no bet too, right?
No, that actually is betting now. So if something crappy happened, you'd be out of luck.
The only thing holding me back is a lot of people are saying that. Like, I think Mike Watchmaker is at 5-2, and for me, I think she should be even money. And all of a sudden, I'm starting. Something doesn't smell right, and that's the only thing that's bothering me a little bit. Because on paper, she has it all. She has the figs. She has the running style. She's going 2 turns. There's just something that doesn't. It gives me a little bit of uneasy feeling. I think she's still the most likely winner thus far of the weekend. I will say, though, there's another filly in that race that, as long as she goes, I think I really like her, and that's another one that was over your... Huh? Who?
Gomo.
Gomo? No, it's not Gomo. It's a filly...
I know who you're going to say.
It's a filly that came from over in UK. I think Nemorelli really good.
I'll tell you what, I don't like the price she is in the UK right now. Nemorelli only 10-1. That's not enough for me, I don't think. But especially as a horse fill out underneath in the Breeders' Cup Betting Challenge, you know, Songbird, keyed on top, Nemorelli second and third. I thought that race was pretty good. Rewatching that tape, it just seemed like a race that she'd come on for, and I wouldn't be surprised. I could be wrong, but I wouldn't be surprised if she would move up on the dry surface too. I think they really think she wants dirt. So I agree with you. I'm not loving 10-1 against the likes of Rachel's Valentina and Songbird, but for a potential key underneath, and maybe in our markets she'll be more like 12-15. That's a very interesting pick, Matt.
So we talked about Beholder and missing today's gallop with a slight fever. What are your thoughts about Rachel Valentina missing a workout, missing some training in training up to the BC?
I'm disappointed because she was a throwout for me to begin with.
So isn't she even more of a throwout, do you think?
Well, yeah, but now I think more people are going to go the same way.
Okay.
If you watched her workout, I think 2 back, she worked with Stop Charging Maria. She is all over the joint with her lead changes. I thought it was terrible.
She's still second choice, though, right?
I don't know.
Yes.
On the connections and on the pedigree, I would be shocked if she doesn't.
Gotta be just the story alone, you know.
Yeah. Maybe so.
Maybe I think there's a lot of people that don't necessarily put a whole lot into the works prior. I'm myself included. However, that is a big red flag for me.
Well, what happened exactly? I actually haven't seen that story yet. What precisely happened?
You might know more than me. I just know that you know, they were after the spin away, they were training up to the race, and there was some sort of, I don't think it was a major setback, but enough of a setback that she missed a workout, and they eased back on her training. And it's not the sort of thing that you want to see leading into the Breeders' Cup Juvenile fillies.
For me, it was just more, they actually had video of it up. Keeneland threw it on there. I didn't think it was.
For you, it was the work.
It was the work itself. It was, I mean, obviously missing time, if she did, that's not a good thing. But for me, it was just watching it. I don't say it was so bad. It's just, again, maybe I'm just super picky about this sort of thing, but she's just not doing it the way that I want to see her doing it, and she's never gone 2 turns. She's going to be the best she's ever faced. I can't take a short price on a horse like that.
Yeah, I think you're making good points. Only thing I'll say about the missing work, if it was far enough back, if it was why they decided not to prep, for example, or just train up to the race, a lot of trainers, that would be a big negative. Pletcher's so good. Sometimes I think even better off the layoff than when they've had one. He just seems to be able to bring these horses back fully formed. So that's the only thing I'll say. I think you're right, Matt. I don't think she'll be value, but I think just from what I saw on the tape in her races, I think I got to use her defensively in my picks.
Before we've got about 5-10 minutes left, and while we're on the Pletcher topic, I know Mike's looking to see if she did.
I'm just looking to see if there's a story about it.
Liam's map going to the mile obviously changes the complexion of so many different races, and it changed the hands that a lot of the connections played. You know, private zone, it became a no-brainer. You're going to the sprint. If Liam's map goes there, all of a sudden the pace in the classic is different, and it looks like Liam's map will be even money. There's a part of me that looks at it one of 2 ways. He's obviously the most talented horse in that race. Go ahead. Do we have?
It was, I think, last weekend she missed a work. Like not a few days ago, but the weekend prior.
Okay, so
gotcha. So not back in September recently.
No,
that
is 9 days.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is worse.
Yeah, that's worrisome. But so Liam's map, he looks like on paper, he's another one. Looks like he checks all the boxes. Is it bad or wrong of me to be very dubious?
I'm surprised that you're dubious. Just because I think, we were talking about the type of pace advantage that that the Pharaoh might have, and now you're talking about, the Dirt Mile to me, which is like barely a grade 1, grade 1 in name only to me. It's so much of a weaker race, and you give a horse as fast as Liam's map a pace advantage. My gut, without having handicapped the race, is that he's 4 to 5 in there. But what are the chinks in the armor that you're seeing?
I don't know that he's totally loose like everyone makes it out to be. I think Appealing Tail, and I think Appealing Tail is a good horse.
Mm-hmm. Appealing Tail is okay.
I don't think he's going to necessarily run with him if they go breakneck early on. But the other thing too about Liam's map is I just hated that he changed back to his left lead late in the Woodward. I understand that was going longer, but he walked out on the front end, and that for me, again, maybe I'm just being super nitpicky, but I just didn't like to see that. And now all of a sudden, I didn't think he'd go 10 to begin with. So I'm not going to fault them for going to the mile, but I just think I don't know. I don't think he's an absolute home run at 4 to 5.
That's fair. I think that late lead change, that's the reason he's not in the Classic. Given those paces, I think they learned something about him. I think they think that he's just going to be better. He's just going to be better going shorter. Appealing Tail's been the beneficiary of some very, 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 very good setups, but with the early speed that he has, it could be just enough potentially to mess with the likes of Liam's map. But I don't know, you're better at this kind of thing than me. When you watch Liam's map's tape, what do you see a horse who needs the lead, or do you see a horse who could potentially shut off just a little bit the way he did, back in like the Harlan's Holiday and still be able to fire a pretty good shot?
I guess that's the concern. Do you think he can do that? Because if he can, obviously it's just an added dimension, and if that's the case, then sure, he's going to be that much more difficult. But I guess against really good horses, keep in mind that was the first race that Valid never changed leads, and that was really I don't want to say the beginning of Valid's sort of form regression, but it kind of was. And I don't know. I mean,
I bet him that day, much to my chagrin.
I was with you. I said
that's
on
what
the
we
far
said.
turn.
Too much weight. DRF Players Podcast, all on the horse.
On the far turn, man, he's supposed to win by 6. He never changes leads, and that's that. I don't know. I think Liam's Map is a very talented horse. You can make the case he's the most talented in the country, really. The problem is distance, obviously, and there's just something about it where this is a horse who's often had layoffs, and this is going to be 3 races in 10, 12 weeks. I mean, that's for a horse that's had some physical things, that's a lot.
Let's not forget, the Dirt Mile is the race where horses could be, I think, more than any other race on the Breeders' Cup, could be most potentially compromised by the post position.
Right.
That's a great point, Mike.
Yeah,
that is a great point. For those who don't know, they're running it basically right starting into the turn. It is going to be a 2-turn race. But the biggest thing to pay attention to when they do the real draw is who gets where for that. Mm-hmm. Now, granted, a Liam's Map and Appealing Tail, they have enough gate speed. Maybe they can get their position anyway. But, like, boy, there is a real chance you're going to just have no alternative but to go 4 wide just from the configuration. Am I exaggerating that, or do you guys agree?
No, I agree completely.
Yeah, I mean, those on the inside are going to be certainly, if they have some early speed out of the gate, they're going to cut the corner on that first turn much more than the ones on the outside will. And at a short price, I mean, the note on our website about all of them is Liam's Map looms the shortest priced BC favorite. I don't know if that's the case, but certainly on dirt, he's probably right up there. He's probably going to be even shorter than American Pharaoh in the Classic.
I definitely think so.
Yeah, so I don't know if I want a short price on a horse. If he draws the outside post, I'm not sure. I'm not saying he's a complete toss, but I'm certainly not going to lean too heavily.
So let's, as we wrap up, about 5 minutes. I guess at this point, do you have any one race in particular that you're most interested in, from wagering and from a fan standpoint, watching?
I will say, I think the race for the biggest potential bomb payout is the Turf Sprint.
Okay. Let's go down that road. Pete, what do you think?
In terms of what race is most likely to yield a bomb?
Chaos.
I mean, I think when you're talking about, want to talk about chaos, I'm going to have to copy Mike. What else do you want than a 5-furlong turf dash with 14 horses? But in terms of horses, I'm looking forward to seeing and/or betting. I don't know what price. Is it Harmonize or Harmonizer? I always forget.
Harmonize.
Yeah. Harmonize. I don't know what price she's going to be in America, but she's 6-1 here. That's bad.
That's fair.
Because I don't think that an A team of Euros is coming over for that race, from what I hear. So that's one that I'm interested in from a betting point of view. It's kind of useless to the listeners because I doubt it'll be available in America. But in terms of being a fan, oh my gosh. I'm so excited to see what Pharaoh does. I think it'll be one of the great stories in thoroughbred racing, certainly that I've ever seen, if not ever full stop, if this horse can complete Grand Slam and do the business at Keeneland. Something's holding me back a little bit. Maybe it's the fanboy in me. I'll do this with the Mets, too. I'll equivocate a little bit about, they look good, but Arrieta's so tough, and I don't know if they're going to be able to do it, blah, blah, blah. When you really want something to happen, sometimes you hold back a little, and maybe that's what's happening with me and the Pharaoh. But from a sporting point of view, unequivocally, this is the race I want to see.
I think the distaff could be chaos.
Yeah, that's why I'm going for Yahilwa.
Yeah, well, exactly. Yeah, no, and that's totally fair. I think the distaff at this point, I think you can poke holes in the favorites.
Yeah.
And there's almost a part of me from a betting standpoint, I want Beholder to show up because it'll be even more nutty, and I think you could probably beat her. If things go amiss or awry.
Well, if they go too awry, she's not going anywhere.
And guess what? We're going to have to find out. I assume they cross-entered her, but I don't know. I mean, if they only entered her in the Classic, then she's got no choice. It's either the Classic or nothing. But yeah, obviously.
Who do you like in there for a long shot, Matt? Do you have a horse you have your eye on to maybe upset the apple cart at a big price to answer Mike's Yahilwa?
I do, Pete, but I can't lay all the cards out on the table.
Come on.
This could be the race.
Wait.
This could be the race for me. So
first, you say you going to the BCBC is not breaking news, as if nobody really cares.
Nobody does care.
But now, so if no one cares,
and guess what? If there's two people that pay attention, you hold your cards close to the chest, man. I'm not gonna just lay it all out there.
Some
Still
serious
strategy
contest players. That's not dumb. Some serious contest players, some people who will be playing in that contest are listening. So
I'm just giving him a little. So you say today we launched the new. Oh no, I say we as if I was involved. I'm not involved at all. But today, DRF.com launched a new homepage that includes a breaking news area. So you mean there's not going to be a breaking news?
No,
Matt,
stop.
Matt Bernier
Stop the nonsense. What are you doing?
I might have to write about this, Matt. It might be a good element to the
what?
To the preview.
This is not newsworthy. This is another Joe Blow putting up money, and he's probably going to lose. I mean,
so you're okay. That's interesting. So you're not playing for a charitable cause this time.
We are. I'm not going to get into the details right now. That'll come out in time.
Okay, but see, that could be where I could help you out on the news part of things because that promotes the charity to write a little, blog. Might not be for the paper, but like a little thing for the blog. Contest players want to know. They like to hear about these charitable efforts as well. We'll talk before the big day.
We'll discuss, but you know what? Maybe we talk about it for the next contest. I'll be back in a couple weeks.
So I know time is short, but I would be remiss if we didn't mention the juvenile as a potential race for a big prize.
Yeah, good point.
And Pete, I want to also ask your thoughts. I think we mentioned him on a podcast, but I think since the last time we talked about this horse, now they're talking about Hit It a Bomb coming into the juvenile instead of the juvenile turf.
Having seen his tape, I think he'd be a threat. I mean, I think he...
I did. It was very impressive. It was very... Yeah. That last race was very impressive.
And that was on the wax.
I'd have to go back and look.
Yeah, it's worth taking a look. I'll be very curious to see where he shows up. He would be a bet for me for sure in the juvenile turf. In the juvenile, if he's like the hot Euro horse who everybody from over here bets and gets a little overbet and he's only like 6-1 or something, I could probably pass. But he's a very talented horse who I'll give a second look no matter where he turns up. Hit It a Bomb.
That for me, that's the one race where I have the most still to do because this is a complete opposite of last year. Like
right.
I have that race. I think
you had your horse.
I think you could throw darts. I think anything could happen in there. There's a couple that I'm looking at, but I mean it's nothing spectacular. I don't think that's going to be a make or break sort of race for my weekend. For the bigger problem for me is going to be as far as multis are concerned. I mean, how deep do you go in some of them? Right. And the problem then becomes too. Let's just say the pick six, and this will be the last thing we'll talk about before we wrap up. I mean, am I looking at playing the first four legs? Keep in mind, I think unless they change it, the turf sprint is going to be the kickoff leg of the pick six. So am I going to have to buy that race? And then, legs 5 and 6 is going to be single. I mean, I don't know. It'll be interesting to see. But
ticket maker.
Well, obviously ticket maker A's and B's and C's and whatnot. But I mean, even then you gotta, how do you distinguish if you, let's just say, I'm not advocating anyone use all 14 horses. If you want to, go right ahead. But I mean, if I use 10. I mean, how do I really separate A's, B's, and C's? If I'm using 10, I don't have a super strong opinion to begin with.
It's what I did in the King's Bishop. In the pick 4, I used every horse in the King's Bishop at least as a C. So if I was right about my A's in the subsequent legs, I bought the race.
You're in.
And I used Private Zone as an A in the next leg. I used Flincher as an A in the next leg. And I used American Pharaoh as my lone A with a couple C's. And I actually had Run Happy as one of my 3 A's. And so I was alive to 4 horses in the pick 4. Fortunately, one of them wasn't Key Nice. We won't go there. But that's a strategy sometimes that I will use in Ticket Maker where you actually can buy a race without it being overly expensive.
No opinion. Yeah, and I think the key thing is you can buy it without expressing no opinion. You can express your opinion within the construct of Ticket Maker. I love that aspect because I'm with you. The gut is like, well, if I'm buying it, do I really have any opinion? Unless I just hate the first 3 choices, I'm pretty much not going to buy a race equally. But if you can use a program like Ticket Maker to weight your opinion, all of a sudden you can get an edge and make a carefully constructed bet. That's the way professional players play the multis. So, that should tell you how effective it can be.
It'll be interesting. Obviously, we got the pre-entries coming out Wednesday night. we'll be diving into it. I should assume you guys will be back on Friday. Pete, when do you go to Lexington?
I go to Lexington on Wednesday. I'll get in Wednesday night. I'm not sure if I'm going to be around Friday for a show, but Mike and I were talking about doing an all-Euro special, perhaps,
yes.
maybe on Monday.
We're in.
Maybe bringing a... Does that look like it's going to happen?
It's confirmed. Monday we will have you, me, Bob Nastanovich, and Mr. Marcus Hirsch. Monday a.m., so keep an eye out for that one.
You want to run down your list right now of all of the... I know we talked about it last
next week for the webinars.
Run down your webinars.
Okay.
Yeah, do it.
Next Tuesday morning, Andy Beyer and Stephen Christ.
Fantastic.
Tuesday afternoon, Randy Moss. Wednesday is open. I want to talk to you and Dan and Mike Beer about doing some. And Pete, I think you're unavailable Wednesday, but if you're available, you're welcome to join as well. Wednesday is open. We're going to do a morning one and an afternoon one Wednesday. Thursday morning, Brad Free, and Thursday afternoon, another webinar with Marcus Hirsch on the Euros, where you can ask. And Pete, if you're available, would love to have you there.
That's great, man. That sounds like a terrific schedule. Good work on that. I'm really excited. Will you be hosting all of those, Mike?
To some extent, I think I will be. At least running the screens, if not actually being the one that talks. But we'll see.
You got some heavy hitters. It'll be fun.
Yeah, it's a little intimidating, but we'll see.
You'll do great.
I am unavailable Wednesday, but I will volunteer Dan and Mike.
Thank you.
Volunteer Dan and Mike.
All right.
That's the thing you got to know about Matt Bernier. He calls the shots for all those guys.
Yes.
I don't know about
I'll go over to right after this. I'll go over to Dan and Mike and say, you guys have been voluntold. You're doing that.
Yeah, that's right. No, but good stuff. Good lineup for next week, and obviously, boy, we're here. We're at the final. You know, it seems like it's been a long 6 months from Pharaoh winning the Kentucky Derby to where we are now.
And knock on wood, let's not have any change. I mean, a few months ago, we were talking about Wise Dan in the mile. We were talking about Beholder in the Classic. We may still see her. We were talking about Flincher in the Turf. We were talking about, God rest his soul, Rockfall in the Sprint. You know, it's
plenty of star power for Breeders'
tough
Cup.
game. We do.
It'll be good stuff. So these guys will check back in with you on Friday. I probably won't talk to any of the podcast people before the Breeders' Cup, so best of luck from my standpoint for all of you. Pete, I'll see you in Kentucky next week. Mike, I'll see you the rest of the week here. You know.
I gotta get out the door here. I'm going to see Arsenal and Bayern Munich in a couple hours.
It must be tough. It must be tough over there, Pete. Going to Champions League game. It must be tough.
Well, you know what? We're gonna watch the Mets play tonight.
Oh no.
I'll watch them. I just won't be in Chicago. I've been setting my alarm diligently for 1:20 in the morning and getting up and watching all these games.
Yeah, that's right. I think you forget what it's like to watch baseball this time of year, don't you?
It's very true. It's been quite a while, but I'm very, very happy to be back in the mix, and we'll see, man. We'll see. Hopefully things will continue along this little trajectory with my man DeGrom on the hill tonight.
On that note, let's go Mets. For Peter Thomas Fornatel, for Mike Hogan, and Matt Bernier, DRF Players Podcast. Talk to you later.